Carl Jung observed something dark about spiritually awakened people that nobody talks about. He noticed they quietly disappear from society, not because they want to, but because they have to. If you've been feeling more isolated since your spiritual awakening, Jung called this the burden of consciousness. And today I'm going to show you why this loneliness is actually a sign you're exactly where you need to be. See, Jung noticed a strange pattern in people who became truly conscious. At first, they tried to keep living the same life, the same routines, the same relationships, the same roles, but something inside them had changed. They couldn't unsee what they'd seen. They couldn't go back to pretending, and slowly, they began to drift, not out of arrogance, not out of rejection, but because awakening rewires the way you feel connection. It's not that you stop loving people, you just stop resonating with the illusions most relationships depend on. And so, one quiet day, you look around and realize you're walking alone. But Jung warned, this is not a mistake. It's the natural consequence of seeing the world as it really is. Loneliness isn't a punishment, it's the shadow side of clarity, and that changes everything. Jung noticed something disturbing in the people who woke up, not louder, not brighter, but quieter. They stopped fighting to be understood and started telling the truth gently. Even if no one clapped, he saw the same pattern again and again. A person becomes more conscious. At first, they try to keep the old life alive, the old friends, the old jokes, the old rhythm, but the mask doesn't fit anymore. The laugh feels borrowed, the weekend feels empty, and conversations that used to fill you now drain you, silently. It wasn't hate, it wasn't superiority, it was simply this. The old self was the one that matched those rooms, and once the old self dissolves, the rooms change. Jung called it the burden of consciousness, because awareness doesn't just show you light, it shows you what was false. It shows you how much of your life was built on politeness, projection, and persona. You start noticing micro-moments you used to miss. The way you apologize when you mean no, the way you smile when you're actually tired, the way you say, it's fine, when your chest says, this hurts, and you can't keep doing it, not without betraying yourself. So the social withdrawal begins, quietly, fewer texts, shorter calls, a soft, maybe next time that you actually mean. You're not running away from people. You're moving toward what's real. Why can't you relate to your old life anymore? Because your nervous system now rejects performance. Because your soul refuses cheap belonging. Because once you meet the self, you can't go back to living only as a persona. If this sounds familiar, you are not broken. You're not antisocial. You're anti-pretending. You're discovering that peace without approval is worth more than approval without peace. And here's the part Jung understood that most people miss. This isolation isn't proof that you're failing. It's proof that you're seeing. Your circle shrinks. Your clarity grows. The crowd fades. Your center strengthens. You start to love differently. Fewer people, deeper presence, fewer words, truer speech, less noise, more signal, and still. The ache is there. The ache of being awake in a world that's still dreaming. The ache of trying to explain a sunrise to someone who's never seen the sky. Jung watched this ache break people who didn't understand it, but he also watched it transform those who did, because there is a reason this happens to almost every awakened soul. And when you understand that reason, the loneliness stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like a calling, because Jung discovered the psychological mechanism behind this isolation, and once you see it, everything makes sense. Jung called this the heaviest weight a human can carry, not grief, not failure, but consciousness itself, because once you see, you can't unsee. Once you know, you can't unknow. What is the burden of consciousness? It's the pressure of holding truth in a world built on comforting lies. It's the tension of feeling real in rooms that reward performance. It's waking up from the dream while everyone you love is still sleeping. Most people don't want deeper awareness, not because they're bad, but because awareness costs. It costs your old identity, your old belonging, your old ways of numbing. So 95% of people will resist it. Gently, endlessly, they'll change the subject, make a joke, scroll the phone, pour another drink, anything to keep the lights dim. And here's the isolation mechanism Jung identified. When you step out of the collective unconscious, you stop sharing its illusions. But illusions are a kind of glue. They hold groups together. Shared denial feels like love. Shared pretending feels like safety. When you stop participating, the glue dissolves and you feel apart. You start hearing it in conversations. The phrases that used to sound normal now feel like sandpaper. It's fine. When it isn't, boys will be boys. When it's harm, that's just how it is. When it's a choice, your body says no, even when your mouth can still say yes. The burden is not only seeing, it's carrying what you see alone. Holding the truth without turning bitter. Holding compassion without falling back asleep. This is why awakened people get quiet. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they refuse to say what isn't true. Look back through history and you'll find this pattern. The ones who saw more often walked apart, not superior, just separate, close enough to love the world, far enough to tell the truth. Why does this hurt so much? Because belonging is a basic human need, and the first thing awakening removes is fake belonging. You lose the crowd before you find your tribe. You lose the noise before you hear your voice. You lose the mask before you meet yourself. But there's a secret inside this burden. The more consciousness you can carry without collapsing, the more purpose can move through you. You become a bridge, not a preacher, a presence, not a performance. People feel safer around you, even when they don't understand you. And here's the paradox Jung understood. Consciousness isolates you from the false, so it can connect you to the true. It separates you horizontally to connect you vertically. Less approval, more alignment, fewer people, deeper love. So if you're feeling the weight, if you're feeling the distance, you're not failing. You're carrying light, and carrying light always reveals what was hiding in the dark. Still, this road has stages. Most awakened people walk through the same 4 gates, in the same quiet order, a pattern Jung recognized, and you might recognize in yourself. First comes the shock, then the pushback, then the grief, then the calm. Miss one of these, and you'll feel stuck for years. Walk them consciously, and the burden turns into backbone, because there is a map for this loneliness, not a shortcut, a sequence. And when you see it, your experience finally makes sense. Ready? These are the 4 stages of awakened isolation, and the last one changes everything. Every awakened soul moves through the same 4 stages, different lives, same map. If this is you, you'll recognize the turns before I finish the sentence. Stage 1. The shock. Reality snaps into focus. You see through the roles, the scripts, the smiles that hide pain. Jokes that used to make you laugh feel empty. Rooms that used to feel warm now feel loud. You try to explain, but your words fall flat. They hear your language, not your meaning. You wonder, did I change? Or did I finally notice what was always here? This is the moment the glue of shared illusion stops sticking. Confusion isn't failure. It's your eyes adjusting to the light. Stage 2. The resistance. You don't want to lose them, so you try to bring them with you. You send the book, the video, the quote. You soften your truth. You sharpen your truth. You try silence. You try sermons. You want them to see, because seeing healed you. But Jung warned, forcing understanding creates opposition. People protect the illusions that protect their identity, so they push back, tease you, call you intense, too deep, too serious. You defend. They defend. The distance grows. This stage is the most exhausting because you're fighting two battles, them and your fear of losing them. Remember this, clarity doesn't need converts. It needs courage. Stage 3, the grief. The fight drains out. The truth remains. You stop trying to convince and start letting go. Not in anger, in honor. You mourn the versions of you that kept those bonds alive. You mourn the rituals, the holidays, the inside jokes. You sit with the ache that has no villain. Tears arrive without a story. You realize you can love someone and not belong where you once did. This grief is sacred. It washes the bitterness out. It teaches you the difference between attachment and love, between needing people to mirror you and loving them as they are. Stage 4, the integration. The quiet becomes peace. Solitude stops feeling like a punishment. It becomes practice. You build a life that fits the person you actually are. Fewer plans, deeper presence. Fewer people, truer bonds. You speak simply. You listen more. You stop performing for the old crowd. You become a bridge instead of a preacher. People who are ready find you, not because you chase, but because your state communicates what your mouth doesn't. You learn new forms of belonging, in nature, in silence, in work that matters, in 1 or 2 friendships that hold truth over comfort. This is where the burden turns into backbone, where your nervous system stabilizes, and your boundaries become kind and clear. And still, there is something else, a stage Jung hinted at, that only the rarest souls reach. It doesn't have a title, because it isn't an achievement. It's a shift, beyond convincing, beyond grieving, beyond managing solitude. A place where loneliness dissolves not because the world changes, but because the center of you moves. Before we go there, a few signs you're entering integration. You stop explaining your no. You stop apologizing for your quiet. Your body relaxes around other people's discomfort. You can sit at the same table, love them as they are, and not abandon yourself. You feel less need to announce your values, because your life now speaks them. If you're still in shock, be gentle. Your senses are recalibrating. If you're in resistance, save your breath, protect your flame. If you're in grief, let the river run. It's cleaning the lens. If you're in integration, keep tending the simple things. Food, sleep, breath, honest work, small beauty. These are not small. They're foundation. Most people cycle these 4 stages a few times. Deeper each round. That's normal. Awakening moves in spirals, not straight lines. Each loop you lose a little noise, gain a little truth. Each loop your circle gets smaller, your center gets larger, and then, for some, the ground gives way, not down, not up. In, the loneliness that haunted you becomes transparent. Connection stops depending on agreement, or understanding, or even presence, because the source of connection is no longer outside you. Carl Jung pointed to this, the rare movement past isolation into essence, where you don't just integrate the self, you abide in it, where you don't seek mirrors, because you've become clear, where the world can stay asleep and you can still love it, deeply, quietly, without breaking yourself to fit it. Most never hear about this stage, because you can't be talked into it, only ripened into it, but when it arrives, you'll know, not by fireworks, but by ease. The ache softens, the edges round, the silence feels alive. You stop needing the loneliness to end, because nothing is missing. What is this hidden stage? Jung gave it a deep name. He called it the transcendent function. It is the psychological function that unites the conscious and the unconscious, that bridges the gap between the isolated ego and the wise self. How do you grow into it? Without forcing, without faking, without bypassing the very human parts of you that still need warmth? Jung gave us clues and practices. He also warned of one fatal mistake that keeps people stuck in suffering for years. Avoid that mistake, and the door opens. Make it, and the burden turns into a prison. Let's talk about that mistake. The one that traps awakened souls in consciousness hell. fix it, and everything changes. Before we talk about the mistake, you need to see the gifts, because if you only see the ache, you'll miss the power waking up gave you. What if this loneliness is actually your superpower? What if the distance you feel is the exact space your purpose needs to breathe? First gift, enhanced perception. You notice what others overlook, micro-expressions, tone shifts, the truth hiding between words. You hear the "I'm fine," that means "I'm breaking." You feel the room's mood before anyone speaks. This isn't paranoia, it's sensitivity turned into intelligence. Used well, it makes you a better friend, partner, creator, guide. Second gift, intuition that actually works, not crystal ball fantasy, clear knowing. You sense when to lean in, when to step back, when to say no. The old you needed reasons, the awake you trust signals, and life starts to align with eerie precision. The right people, the right timing, the right doors. Third gift, natural healing presence. You don't have to fix anyone. Your state does most of the work. People breathe deeper around you. They find words they've been avoiding. They leave lighter, even if you said almost nothing. This is the beginning of Jung's wounded healer. Your pain didn't make you bitter. It made you safe. Fourth gift, depth of connection. You can sit in silence without panic. You can hold a friend's tears without rushing to solve them. You can love without needing to own. Fewer relationships, richer relationships, because you're not addicted to noise anymore. You're loyal to truth. Fifth gift, universal belonging. Yes, the crowd feels far, but the forest doesn't. The night sky doesn't. The page doesn't. The canvas doesn't. You feel held by something that doesn't need your performance. Call it self, source, God, quiet. Whatever the name, the belonging is real. Sixth gift, creative clarity. When you stop spending energy on pretending, you get it back. Words flow, images arrive, solutions appear, work becomes prayer, focus becomes peace, results become byproducts. Seventh gift, boundaries without guilt, not walls, doors. You can open or close them without a speech. You say no, and your body stays calm. You say yes, and your soul doesn't flinch. These gifts don't make you special. They make you useful. Useful to the people who are ready. Useful to the parts of the world that still hurt. Useful to the life that's trying to move through you. And here's the quiet miracle. Once you honor these gifts, the loneliness softens because you stop judging your path and start walking it. You stop asking the crowd for permission and start asking truth for direction. But there's a trap right here. A beautiful, heartbreaking trap that catches almost everyone. It's the move that turns gifts into suffering, purpose into punishment, the fatal mistake, the one that keeps awakened souls stuck in consciousness hell. Make it, and you'll circle pain for years, avoid it, and the path opens with relief, ready to name it, because once you see it, you'll never step in it again. Here it is, the trap that turns awakening into consciousness hell, seeking validation from people who aren't ready to see. You keep handing your truth to unwilling eyes. You keep asking sleepers to confirm your sunrise. You keep trying to make them get it so you can finally feel safe. So you explain, you defend, you teach, you overshare. You turn your life into a courtroom and put your soul on the stand. Every silence feels like a verdict. Every shrug feels like a sentence. Jung warned about this self-betrayal. When you seek approval from the unconscious, you abandon the self to protect the persona. You trade inner peace for outer permission, and the price is always the same. Your center. This is why you feel stuck, not because they don't understand, but because you've made their understanding the condition for your alignment. Read that again. When you make someone else's awareness the gatekeeper of your path, you will wait forever. So the mistake is simple and brutal. Forcing understanding, chasing validation, editing your truth so love won't leave. It never works. It only delays the life that fits you. because clarity doesn't need converts. It needs courage. Your job isn't to convince, your job is to become. There is a better way. A way Jung mapped that turns this burden into purpose, that ends the chasing, heals the ache, and builds a life where you can finally breathe. Ready for the shift that transforms everything? Let's walk Jung's path of transformation, step by step. Here's the shift that transforms everything. Stop chasing understanding. Start living your understanding. This is the quiet pivot where awakening stops being an idea you talk about and becomes a life you embody. Step 1. Stop seeking unconscious validation. No more proving. No more persuading. No more begging for permission. You bless the room and walk out with your center intact. You don't harden. You halo. A soft yes to yourself. A gentle no to the performance. Approval becomes optional. Alignment becomes non-negotiable. Step 2. Build conscious connections. Not a crowd, a field. 1 or 2 people who value truth over comfort, presence over performance. You'll know them by the way your nervous system exhales around them. Conversations feel like clean water, not sugar. No performing, no fixing, just seeing. This is your true tribe. Even if it's tiny, even if it's quiet. Step 3. Turn insight into service. Jung's move from burden to purpose is practical. Take what healed you and let it flow. Write the page, record the video, check in on that friend. Build the thing you wish existed. Service doesn't drain you when it's aligned. It feeds you. Your life becomes a tuning fork, not a megaphone. People feel the note, with or without words. Step 4. Daily rituals that stabilize you. Small sacreds, done faithfully. Morning stillness, honest movement, clean food, clear water, a page of truth. 5 minutes under the sky, boundaries you actually keep, sleep you actually protect. Boring? Maybe, but boring is bridging. It turns flashes of clarity into a state you can live from. Step 5. Individuation for real. This is Jung's endgame. Becoming whole, not perfect, placed, shadow integrated, persona honest, anima, animus befriended. You stop acting from fragments. You act from center. Your life fits your soul like a well-worn coat, and the old ache loosens its grip, because you're no longer split against yourself. A few signs you're on the path. You explain less and communicate more. You do less and mean more. You're kinder and clearer at the same time. You choose what is true even when it costs attention, and somehow you lose nothing that mattered. This is how the burden becomes backbone, how loneliness becomes space, how awakening stops being a wound you defend and becomes a well you drink from. No more chasing mirrors. You are the mirror. No more forcing belonging. You radiate belonging, and the right people find you in the right time for the right reasons. We're almost home. Let's land this with a quiet courage, a closing that sends you back into your life with clarity and peace.